We start with news on the nationwide bus drivers' strike. Employers and 5 unions in the sector are expected to meet tomorrow to find ways of resolving the impasse. To tell us more, we're joined by the South African Road Passenger Bargaining Council's General Secretary, Gary Wilson. Mr. Wilson, good evening to you, and thank you so much for your time on the programme. Do you and the employers remain as far apart as you have been in recent weeks over the wage issue?
Well, I think the fact that we have managed to get both sides to agree to come to the table is a positive step. And from discussions that we've had during the day with both sides, representatives from both sides, there seems to be a positive outlook, and people are coming tomorrow to the negotiations hoping that we can resolve this impasse as quickly as possible. So I'm very hopeful that by tomorrow, we'll have something that we can look at, and hopefully that we can come to a conclusion on this issue.
So how far apart are you in terms of these salary negotiations?
When the deadlock was declared, the unions were standing at 12%, and the employers were standing at a 3-year agreement of 7.25 and 7.5. So that's what we will go into, but there was also a mediator's proposal that was put before the parties, and I'm hoping that by tomorrow, we'll have something in front of us that we can start on and hopefully reach some sort of agreement.
Just talk us through what sort of working conditions you would like to see improved.
Well, the Bargaining Council implements what the parties negotiate. So whatever the conditions is that are put as demands between the parties and get agreed on, the Bargaining Councils then enforce and implement. So obviously there are some conditions that are still on the table, and those conditions will tomorrow also be looked at.
So let's look at some of those conditions. Start by explaining what you want changed about night shifts.
Well, the conditions or the demands is coming from the unions. And one of the demands that the unions have is that the night shift should be as per the BCA, which is from 6 in the evening until 6 in the morning. The current agreement is from 8 in the evening till 3 in the morning. And so the parties, obviously, the unions want it to be in line with the basic conditions of employment. But this is a benefit or condition that's been negotiated over many years, and that's part of our collective agreement. So it can only be changed through collective bargaining.
Explain to us, first of all, what the dual labour system is and what issue you take with it.
Well, one of the demands that the unions have is that currently, when there's a bus that travels a long distance, there's 2 drivers that's on each bus. And one of the demands that the unions are having is that both of those drivers should be paid while they are on the bus. One of our benefits that's currently in place is that the driver gets an allowance who does not drive, the one that rests while the other one drives. And that's one of the areas also that is a bit in contention at the moment.
In terms of your demands around nights away from home and decent accommodation?
Our current agreement talks about S&T where, where the driver gets an S&T or an allowance when he sleeps away from home. And the condition as it stands at the moment is that the employer must either provide the driver with accommodation, or the driver gets an allowance which he then can himself provide for accommodation. So that's currently in place as it is. Obviously, the unions want that benefit to be improved.
I just want to ask you about a request the Transport Minister has made, saying these negotiations are resuming tomorrow. Can you not put your strike on hold until some sort of resolution has been released? Or perhaps if you reach another deadlock, you'd be justified in going back on strike?
Unfortunately, it's not up to the Bargaining Council whether we can start the strike or call it off. That's the parties. The 48-hour notice was issued by the unions, and only the unions can suspend that strike or suspend the period while negotiations is on. The Bargaining Council, unfortunately, do not have control over that.
So should commuters simply accept there won't be any buses tomorrow, and this is an indefinite situation? It's
an unfortunate situation, that tomorrow unfortunately the strike will continue tomorrow morning. We are hoping that as soon as we meet tomorrow morning that we can look at the situation and see if we can find some way of resolving it. But as it stands now, I have to apologize. The strike will unfortunately continue tomorrow.